Alright, what's up, guys? Evil GM here. Evil GM 1. And I'm doing some prep work for my game tomorrow. I had a late night. I just woke up. So, I've already completed this, but I was going to show you guys. I have made Uravity for My Hero Academia using BESM. And what is that BS? Okay, so I just went to the wiki. I've seen all of the show that's out right now, but only once. So I'm no expert by all means at it. So basically, I use the wiki to kind of give me ideas about her. So she has 0 gravity. She has the skill release, home run comment, and hand-to-hand combat. If you look, power, speed, technique, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so let's show you guys kind of what I did here. Alright, first off, here is the character sheet you need to be using. It was created by BESM 82, I believe. Should be able to find it. That's not really focused, but BESM 82. So we got her body, mind, and soul here. Alright, if you look at the website, and we focus down here at this grading card, which this anime is particularly good since it's a superhero anime, because, let me turn off her little picture here, because basically, they're already giving you kind of what you're looking for when you're creating an anime character. So her power and speed are D and E, which is kind of a low average. And if you recall, I said teenage average is 3. So I gave her a body of 2 to represent that she is kind of weaker than a normal teenager. Her intelligence is average, so I gave her a mind of 3. Now, I could have given her a mind higher to represent the technique and cooperativeness, but instead of that, I chose to pump her soul up to 4, which is adult human average, meaning she's on the level of most adults. And my total spent doing all that is 90 points on body, mind, and soul. Just like if I had put 3 across the board. Kind of neat how that worked out. Now, for her power, which is 0 gravity, I chose to give her flight, which is right here. So flight, when we look in the book, is generally for you only. Now, it costs 8 points per level, and it's generally for you. There's custom restrictions you can take upon it, which I took. Restriction, I created it. Where's it at? Up. Because in the anime, I've only ever seen her float stuff upward. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm no expert on it. So, basically, that is just takes, when you put a restriction on an attribute, it will take 1 point off of the total cost. Alright, I then went in to the back, and this is kind of what makes this game cool, is you want specific things, and to get those specific things, sometimes it costs less. So we could have designed her 0G attack several different ways. The way I chose to do it was giving it the restriction imbue, which means when she casts this or activates this attribute, she chooses somebody else to put it on. She can't do it on herself. Now, there's a restriction. The lowest one is 4 to 6 people. I saw in there she can do about 3 tons, or she starts getting sick, and also herself makes her sick. So that's going to kind of be up in the air. But as a GM, I'll let them float objects too, just because this is 4 to 6 people. That'd be the people limit. Now, deplete, I assigned to represent that sickness. Again, you could do it different ways.
So basically what deplete does is it's going to cost her energy to activate that. It's going to cost her 1 energy every 5 minutes, which is honestly probably not as severe as it actually is in the anime. I would probably say in the anime it's probably 1 every minute, which would have been a -3 off the total cost. But I kind of like to give my players and characters higher powers, see how that goes, and then bump them down if needed, rather than start out weak, because it's easier to bump down, it's harder to go up. I also added the unique restriction that it requires a roll. The victim gets a body or soul roll, whichever's higher, and if they hit a target number 9, they are not affected by it. And what that's going to represent is someone grabbing a hold of an object as they're floating up, basically. So when we look at this, I gave her flight level 1. It cost 8 points. Now, level 1, I didn't really tell you about that, but so each level increases your kilometers per hour. Level 1 is 10 kilometers per hour. Since it's kind of a slow float, I didn't even really bother going above level 1. Skill release, which is one of her powers that the website says she has, is just basically to me turning off the attribute. So I didn't represent it in any way other than, hey, she turns off flight. Like I said, you could design this character several different ways. This may not be the best way, but it's the way I chose. And then I bought flight again at level 1 for herself. I only gave it the restriction up and deplete, and I apologize that this camera isn't that great, but it's what I got to work with at the moment. So moving on, I gave her the weapon, Home Run Comet, which, if you look, Home Run Comet is a technique that she has. It says, after applying her quirk's power of making objects float to some rubble and a pillar, she uses the pillar to hit the rubble at her enemy. This move was first used to distract Aida during the battle trial. Okay. Great. So, I pumped it up a little bit. I gave it weapon level 5, which is pretty hardcore. I forgot to star this. And that's going to cost me 10 points. Now, I gave it knockback, which I starred. Basically, knockback is not in 3rd edition. I said this book was out of print. You can download it on RPG.com, drive-through-RPG.com. You can also download something called TriStat Core on drive-through-RPG.com, and TriStat Core will have a lot of these in there. It is free, completely 100% free, and it is the basis for BESM. So a lot of these attributes are almost verbatim the same in the TriStat book. You could probably just buy the TriStat book and run a BESM game if you'd like. One of the weapon attributes in that book that I feel like they should have included in BESM is knockback, which is like, if you've watched One Piece, Luffy knocking him into the horizon or so and so and so forth. So knockback level 1 means, I got that from that book is basically what I'm saying, but knockback level 1 is however much damage the opponent takes, they get thrown back. I believe it's a meter for that amount of damage. And that costs 1 point to add on top of the 10. I also gave her stun, which means it's non-lethal. Now that's also going to cost 1 point. And some of you may say, well, isn't stun a restriction because it heals faster and blah, blah, blah. But in BSM, you could play with the house rule that unless you're saying you're going to kill someone, your damage is non-lethal. But originally, so you kind of have to control back, because I've got weapon level 5. I don't have to use weapon level 5. I can use weapon level 1 through 2 through 5 when I'm using this attack. And so basically, stun kind of helps you, like, hey, I'm not going to kill anyone with this, so I can go all out. There's no danger of anyone dying. Without that house rule, if I was to do this and I didn't have stun, you'll see the damage in a minute. Someone would probably end up dead. Okay. Now, there are weapon-specific restrictions, but I used the attribute restrictions on this. You can use both or either. I used dependent, which means, oh my gosh, my handwriting. I wrote everything on this sheet first so that when I get it over to the character sheet, it's going to be nice and clean. So I used dependent, which means that unless she has activated her 0 gravity on an opponent, and that's active, she cannot use, or objects, an opponent really, she cannot use this. That's just a -1 point off the total. And then I gave her consumable to represent the objects she has to float up, because she has to have rubble and something to hit the rubble with. And consumable at a level 1, it gives you -2 off the power, and it's basically just easy to replace. So her total cost for the weapon Home Run Comet is going to be 10 plus 2 minus 2 minus 1, or 9. I also gave her, because it says on the bottom that while she's training with Gunhead, he teaches her martial arts. Now, you could have done this several ways. You could have designed more weapon attacks, things of that nature, to kind of represent, hey, it's martial arts. I just gave her the combat technique, Brutal. And what that does is, normally when you make an unarmed attack in BSM 3rd edition, it's just going to be your ACV, which would be 3, because your weapon level is 0. So I punch you, I do 3 points of damage. Well, I gave her Brutal 1, which makes all of her unarmed attacks now weapon level 1. What that means is she gets her damage multiplier, which is 5, added to all unarmed attacks, which a throw is an unarmed attack. So now, instead of doing 3 points of damage, she's doing a total of 8 points of damage every time she punches at someone. So it's pretty cool. This goes up to level 2. Your GM could let you take it higher. It really depends on who you're with. Some people see it as OP. I don't know. It just depends on the situation and the kind of character you have. So then I gave her 10 points in Unknown Power. Unknown Power is a special attribute that your Game Master controls. You put, and I didn't have to do this because she's an NPC, so it doesn't really matter. But you put an amount of points into this power, this attribute. I gave it 10. And I add, as a Game Master, half to it. So in other words, there's 15 points in here. And I can spin this on attributes to develop for you, the player. I can let you spend it too. Most GMs will spend it themselves, but it basically represents unknown powers that you might have latent in you. Or, like, say, Ochaco or Uravity is in the middle of a giant fight, and her normal stuff isn't working. She needs something to overcome what's coming up. So I'm going to go, okay, you got 15 points, make an attribute to get you out of this. Or I may have already assigned the attribute, and I'll go, okay, your new power, Home Run Derby Zoom Zoom is now active, or whatever. This is what it does, blah, blah, blah. Now you can use that from now on, and then they can adjust it. You'll get points as you play this game that will help you level up your characters. Well, not level up, but improve them. So, Unknown Power, that's kind of what that is. And since she's a hero in training, I thought it was appropriate. I will recommend that my players take this. They do not have to. If they did take it, I will probably let them do it in those situations I mentioned, because I hate designing people's characters for them. I don't, yeah. So, derive values, and then we'll get to the weapon. Body, mind, soul. To get your HP, it is your body plus your soul times 5. 6 times 5, HP is 30. Mind plus soul times 5 equals your energy. Now, not everything uses energy, as you see with these abilities. I had to give it deplete to make it use energy. Her weapon attack does not use energy. So that will equal 35. And then your shock value is your HP divided by 5. Shock value is an optional rule. You don't have to use it. It's basically going to say if you take this many points of damage, make a roll, or you may go unconscious. Because, and I might be wrong because I haven't read it in a while. Usually I don't play with it. But basically it's like, oh, that's massive damage for you. Kind of. So you have to make a roll or you go incapacitated. Again, it is an optional rule. There are things that will raise your shock value and ACV, DCV is the average of these. So you add them all up, which will be 9, divide them by 3, and you get a 3. So her ACV, DCV is 3. Her damage multiplier, which I haven't changed via any attributes, is 5. And here is her weapon. Home Run Comet, kind of out. I put the range as melee. There is no minus or plus to the weapon cost when you design it. You could say its range is melee or range. You have to, as a GM, I make my players tell me, because unless it is one that could be fluctuating, you kind of want to nail that down so you're not surprised at the end. And I guess really a home run comet hurling pebbles at someone could kind of be ranged. And I'll take a second to show you guys kind of where we're at with that. So I talked about weapon restrictions and attribute restrictions. This is customization. So with customization, you can fine-tune these specific attributes. Your GM may let you do other ones, but weapon, everything basically has a starting out range, and I completely forgot about this, so I was absolutely wrong. I didn't put any points in the range. Weapon, as you see down here at the bottom, where you can't see because it's so blurry, and I don't want to use the PDF today, so I would just grab my camera. Its area starts out as 0, meaning you can only target an individual. Its duration starts out at 0. Its range starts out at 0. And targets starts out at 0. So, if I want to increase the range on this, and increasing the range would take it up to 10 meters, I just spend a point. And I think I will go ahead and do that since I was minus a point anyway. So we're going to give this a range of 1. Meaning, now you can use this as melee anywhere between 10 meters you can use. So we'll change this to 10 meters. It's going to change her overall point cost, but only by 1 point. So it's not really a big deal. Okay. The level. Oh, I put 10. Whoops. That was the cost. The level is 5. So to find the damage, it's 5 times your damage multiplier, which would be 25, plus your AC. So her damage is 28. Again, it is got knockback, so if she hits with it and all 28 points are delivered, they'll go flying back 28 meters, and it has stun, so even if that's enough to kill somebody, it's not going to kill them. Now, I talked to you the other day about benchmarks, and I said heroic is kind of where I believe we would be at. I did not use any benchmarks when designing this character. I just put everything I thought she would have based on what I read from their website and what I know from the anime, and then I totaled the point cost. So you can see human is 100 to 149 points. We want this person to be probably at least heroic, so let's get heroic a minimum of 150 points. Her total cost is 119. You can't read that because I have terrible handwriting and this camera doesn't focus, but it's 119. So I've only spent 119 character points on her. What you can do, and this is just the basis, kind of, like I said, for her. So BESM does have skills, so you probably want to go ahead and get in there and give her some skill points. You could design some of those martial art throws I was talking about, but at this point, as a GM, you would want to bring her up to 150. And I haven't even given her any defects yet, which will increase her overall point value. A lot of players will groan when you say, I'm only giving you 150 points, because they'll look at that benchmark and go, what? But really, as you can see, I've designed this character with, at least I believe, everything she pretty much has on the anime. And I haven't even hit that benchmark of 150 points. So by BESM standards, she is a human player. She's not any more powerful. And maybe that is where she stops, because she is a hero in training. She's not a hero. So, as a GM, you could say, okay, point buy limit is going to be 125. And that's what I give you. If you have defects and you take enough defects, you could possibly, like if I had a 125 point character and I wanted to make them not really that combat savvy, I could get upwards of 200 character points with that character. And that's okay. The 120 benchmark that you're giving them is just what you give them. If they want to take defects and hobble their character and get it up, that is completely fine. That's up to them. So anyway, now you got your Ravity. And as I thought, this is going to be a 150 point game. I could also just take the rest of her points and sink them into unknown power. But I'm not going to do that. I statted this person out, and I'm probably not even going to use them in the main game. What I'm probably going to end up doing is, if I remember correctly, and it's hard to remember because, like I said, I've only seen the show once, but I believe that in My Hero Academia, it's in Tokyo. I could be wrong. It could be its own setting. So I'll probably make a Hero Academy elsewhere, Europe, or I don't know, America. Probably not America, but somewhere. I'll make it somewhere else, and they'll have their own hero classes and their own heroes, and that's kind of how I'll start it up. And it can be in the same universe, but it separates it, so I don't have to go. So the players aren't, if they're familiar with the anime, beginning, where's All Might? Where's this guy? Why are we fighting this villain? Blah 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 blah. That's something you're going to have to deal with if you make an anime role-playing game, is where are the main characters, and why aren't they in the anime? Some people do not like to touch the main story at all. I don't care, really, but to start out with, I'm not going to mess with that. So, for me, like, example, I ran a One Piece anime BESM game. The characters were one step behind Luffy and them at the beginning. Eventually, they could have ended up with them. This was back before the show even had 300 episodes, which now I know it's up to 700 something, and I'm not current, but I'm close. Just trying to wait for more episodes to come out, because I hate waiting week to week to watch an anime or any show, really. So they were one step behind them. So when you get to Rogue Town and Luffy and them escape from Smoker, my group was right behind him, and they inadvertently stole Smoker's ship. is how I kind of set it up, which I know they probably explained it on the anime, and this has been a while since I've seen way back then, but to me that was kind of like, he. I've canonly explained why Smoker didn't get after them as fast, why it took so long for Smoker to get after them, you know? And it is a fun way. It was a fun way to do that. So it's up to you as a GM when you're running an anime game how much interaction do you want to have with the main story. Personally, I'd be fine if, say, they caught up to Luffy and them. Yeah, sorry. And they killed them, or well, they probably wouldn't kill them, but incapacitated them or whatever. And so they were supposed to go to Alabaster, and now they're not in Alabaster, or maybe they kidnapped Princess Vivi. That's fine with me. Changing the main story, I'm okay with. At that point, you just don't use the anime as source material. You use it as source material for the universe, but you stop going kind of how they would affect it. And that sometimes is fun, and sometimes it's not. It just depends on what you as GM feel comfortable with. But anyway, that is it for this cast. So, Evil GM is out.